It's one of the most popular drugs in the world. It had the fastest initial sales growth of any prescription product ever after its launch. Over 65 million men have purchased it. The US military spends $41 million per year for it. At its peak, it made its parent company $2 billion a year, and now, even today, when an expired patent means generic alternatives are also available, its name brand recognition still earns that parent company $500 million a year. And yet, the drug in question was discovered completely by accident. In 1989, Peter Dunn and Albert Wood, two British scientists working for the pharmaceutical company Pfizer, created a drug called sildenafil citrate, which they intended to use to treat high blood pressure and angina, as the drug increased blood flow through arteries. The early trials of the drug in the 90s showed little success in its intended realm. However, nurses checking on the patients did report that the men in the trial were often laying on their stomachs when the nurses came in, as they were embarrassed that they had unexpected erections. Realizing the drug was more effective at opening up the blood vessels of the penis than of the heart, Pfizer wisely understood they still had a potential game-changer on their hands, as it's estimated that 30 million men in the US and 100 million men worldwide suffer from some form of erectile dysfunction. And so, in 1996, Pfizer patented the drug, and after FDA approval in 1998, they released it into the world, under their brand name Viagra. In just its first few months, 40,000 men were prescribed the drug, and although at that time it was only legal in a few countries, it soon became one of the most popular black market drugs around the world. Its popularity only grew as it became more ubiquitous in pop culture, featured in cover stories of Time and Newsweek, promoted by former presidential nominee Bob Dole, and famously featured in a classic episode of HBO's Sex and the City. Today, even with an increasing number of generic brand alternatives, Viagra remains the go-to buzz term for a drug meant to increase male virility, which makes it perhaps even more ironic that it was also eventually adopted as part of a nickname for a male superstar who, one would imagine, would never for 1 second ever admit to having to use the drug, or to being anything but the foremost example of extreme male virility. But what happens when an actor known not only for his macho image, but also, supposedly, his undeniable box office prowess, does take a public hit that dings at least part of that image, and leaves them in a publicly wounded, emasculated position? Can a man who couldn't launch a successful superhero franchise during the midst of an ongoing torrent of comic book movies truly be known as Franchise Viagra?
Franchise Viagra.
The year is 2022, and Warner Brothers are ready to change the hierarchy of the DC universe and launch the next big DC superhero franchise with Black Adam.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Hello, listeners. You've heard of the DCEU. Well, get ready for Failure to Franchise presents the DCPU. Oh my God, open up a window. Jesus. Light a match.
Welcome once again to Failure to Franchise, the show dedicated to some Hollywood's most infamous mistakes, missteps, and misfires. This is Trev.
And I'm Chris, and even though I feel a little under the weather, I thought to myself, Trev, what would Dwayne Johnson do? And you know what he'd do? You know, he tried to change the hierarchy of power of this podcast. So I'm here, I'm going to push through, and yeah, let's talk about Black Adam.
I thought you were going to say Dwayne Johnson would try and sell you some kind of supplement that I'm sure he's got marketed and has his name on.
That's what I actually took. I took his $7 Productions, steroid uses to get me back into shape for the pod. So yeah,
allegedly steroid.
Allegedly. Totally natural. Yeah.
Well, as you might have guessed by that clever banter and seeing the name of this episode, we are continuing on with our DCPU. We always promised it was a decade by decade look at DC failures, and we're up to this decade. We're up to the 2020s, and we got a couple to look at. Very recent films. These are the most recent movies we've done.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, before I even get into the movie, we'll just say we're calling our shots on these. We are Babe Ruth pointing at the stands right now. We're saying we're pretty sure that this and our next episode we will not see sequels, at least not in the form of what they were hoping for. And we're kicking it off with a movie from last year, 2022's Black Adam. Chris, tell us a little bit about Black Adam, or should we call it Teth Adam? I don't know. We'll talk about that.
We'll see. We'll see. It is directed by Jomi Collette Sarah. He's most known for some horror stuff. He made the House of Wax remake, Orphan, The Shallows. He's a frequent Liam Neeson collaborator. That was funny to notice. And he worked with The Rock on Jungle Cruise. So there's your connective tissue there.
Yeah, do you think he is most known for horror, or do you think he's most known for the Liam Neeson movies? I wonder. He's got kind of two like little lanes there, right?
For sure.
I'll say I couldn't really care less about those Liam Neeson movies he's made, but I really like his horror output. House of Wax is a really fun remake. I love The Shallows. Orphan was pretty fun. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah.
I did like. I like Nonstop. I saw Nonstop.
I've heard that one's good, but I haven't seen it. So.
Yeah, that's the one on the plane, and that's a good one. This Black Adam was written by Adam Steichel, I'm thinking. He wrote Due Date, Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Chip, and he wrote Rampage with The Rock. So there's your connective tissue there. But the script was rewritten by writing partners Rory Haynes and Sohrab Toshirvani. I am not familiar with their work, and they don't have much of it. Black Adam is based on, well, I guess the movies, these characters are created by Bill Parker, C.C. Beck, Jerry Siegel, and Joe Shuster. The budget of the film, a lot of conflicting reports, which I'm sure we'll talk about in the episode, but it sounds like it ballooned up to $260 million due to a lot of reshoots. And domestically, it made $168 million, and then worldwide, this did not even crack $400 million. So perhaps we'll talk about it, but we will talk about it, but it was quite a humbling experience for The Rock, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, going to be the thesis statement of this podcast. Now, not to already get into the Schadenfreude here, but if you go back and listen to our Baywatch episode, which I would definitely recommend if you haven't, you and I have some thoughts on The Rock, and particularly The Rock's kind of approach to filmmaking and his Hollywood image. And this was definitely, Black Adam was the moment where a lot of the shine came off The Rock.
Yeah.
And seeing how he reacted to it, I think, also was very. It was just quite the moment in rock history, and so I think humbling is the right word, and we'll definitely get into that because this is one of those ones where we talk a lot about. I think we've brought this up in recent episodes, even how you look at some movies and you go, "Geez, I don't really know who to blame for this." Right? Where does the blame fall?
Yeah.
And I think with Black Adam, it's going to be pretty safe to say. Not solely, but the vast majority of the blame for why this movie didn't hit as hard as they wanted to, I think would have to fall on the large shoulders of The Rock. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes. The Rock is somebody that I think me and you both really liked, and as he's become a Hollywood A-lister, he has tried to place his hands in every single pot of the studio system. Yeah. And I think sometimes you just gotta realize you're just an actor and you don't know how this world works, and maybe you're just punching above your weight class a little bit. That's weird to say about The Rock because he's a gigantic man, but I just feel like the guy throws, I think, too much of his ego into his projects now, and it's becoming so apparent that people sign up for a Rock movie and they know exactly what they're getting, but they're not happy about it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's two things, right? It's ego. We're certainly going to talk about that with this episode. And then it's also like the desire to be the biggest star in the world and the most loved star in the world, right? This is something we talked about with Will Smith as well. I think he's following the Will Smith model, but even taking it to the next higher degree. And that is making sure that every decision he makes, every, move he makes, we're in the middle of
every breath he takes.
Every breath you take. Living in a time where there's a lot of discussion in like film and Twitter and just all like, any podcast like this about how movie making and cinema is just becoming more soulless, with the stuff like the Marvel movies and Disney and, kind of all these huge blockbusters taking over and really pushing aside the smaller filmmakers, at a time where something like a piece of IP can make tons of money, and then Martin Scorsese puts out Killers of the Flower Moon, it makes like $40 million, and then Joe Russo thinks he has the right to like take shots at Scorsese. I'm like, anyways, I don't want to litigate all this, but there's a lot of soullessness in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I think what bums me out about like modern day Dwayne Johnson is anytime you hear him talk about the movies he's making, he's never talking about them as art. He seems to have no interest in the artistic side of it and like the soul of the project. He's always talking about it as a product and about how many like quadrants it can hit and what the merchandising capabilities are. He talks about box office far more than he talks about, whether the movie just hit with people. And that really bums me out. We do a podcast that's about failure, so we have to talk about box office. But Chris, from private conversations and other threads we've had, that I think like talking about box office is like one of the most boring things to talk about with movies.
Sure.
I'd rather just talk about what the film is. And
and that's why we get it right out on Front Street right away. We move past, and like I love my stats. I love stats. I love numbers. But once it's all said and done, let's actually get into the crux of the film itself and what exactly happened. So absolutely, I totally agree.
Yeah, I guess what I mean is like he's the kind of guy, if a movie bombs like financially, to him that would just be a complete failure. There's like I can't imagine him sitting there and thinking, yeah, but you know what, I'm really proud of that as like an artistic piece still. I don't think that would matter to him. It's more like, oh, what didn't work here that we didn't make that extra $200 million at the box office? We'll modify that on the next one. Totally. So obviously we'll say more about this because this movie is a movie that's clearly, modeled and built off of his approach to filmmaking, but that's what bums me out about him nowadays. And we talk much more about this in the Baywatch episode, like I said.
Oh, yeah. Like there was even, like we're going to talk about the behind the scenes here, but I mean, there's that famous, that Instagram post where he's sitting with the camera behind his head in the group of his committee meeting, watching the trailer for Black Adam and discussing the merchandise opportunities and all
I don't
this
even think it was the
bullshit.
trailer. I swear, I think that was I think the post was, because I know you're talking about, that was I think I sent that to you guys.
Yeah.
It was I think that was his first time watching the final cut of the movie.
That's what, and it was on like this 20-inch TV.
Yes, yeah. That was exactly that. He was the first time Dwayne Johnson watched the final cut of Black Adam was not like in a theater, was not with the other artists who made the film or an audience. It was with the DC merchandising team.
Yeah.
And they show him at this little conference table with them all watching the movie on this little monitor, and they're surrounded by Black Adam action figures and everything. And you realize, okay, yep, there it is. That picture to me was the ultimate representation of what Dwayne Johnson is today, where he's like, this movie is just product. So let's I got to show it to the product people first to make sure it's sellable as, IP, as content.
And it sucks because again, we did like The Rock. This is something that this might become a bitch fest about him again, just like Baywatch. But I mean, there was a time where The Rock posted something on Instagram, and I was so into it. You're just drawn into the guy, and you want to watch his movies. Pain and Gain is one of my favorite performances by him, and probably the last time I actually truly loved him in a movie. Mm-hmm. And there's just something that I think soulless is that word now. He's so all about the marketability, and I'm a salesperson by trade. That's what I do. I'm a career professional salesperson, and I do love to sell things, I always have. But there's more to it, and especially when you're selling art, and I don't even think he sees movies as art,
no,
at all.
He sees them as commerce, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. He's always talking about the same story, the $7 in his pocket, blah, 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 turned into, multi-$100 million, businesses and all this other stuff. And I think I'm just worn out by the guy. I know one of our listeners had on our social media a long time ago said something like we should do a Rocktober, because we love our themes. And honestly, buddy, I would love to, but that might be the month that I die. So, there's too many Dwayne Johnson movies that can fit in that month.
Yeah, that's the we have a list we keep, and we don't worry. This is not the last Dwayne Johnson movie on our list.
No.
This just fits into our overall theme right now. But and that goes to something too, like because I agree. Like I used to love the guy. I mean, I was super into wrestling during the Attitude Era, and like I was a huge fan of wrestling right when he was becoming The Rock and the megastar that we know him as, and I loved him. He was great. He was that bad guy who was so awesome that they had to turn him good because like everyone wanted to cheer him. I rooted for him as he made the transition over to Hollywood. Going back and looking at some of that, you can kind of already start to see like what we would later, learn about him, because even in early interviews, you see how everything was still very much a calculated business decision for him in terms of making the jump from wrestling into Hollywood. But at the time, it just wasn't as apparent yet, and Hollywood hadn't completely been taken over by algorithms and streaming content and all this crap yet. So it didn't seem as like, I don't know, egregious as it does now. Yeah. But yeah, I love The Rundown. Heck, The Rundown is probably still his best movie. I don't know. There's something to me, even like a movie like Walking Tall, which is kind of a piece of crap, but it's like a piece of crap that I'm nostalgic for. You know what I mean? Like that kind of lower budgeted action movie. I remember I thought the movie Faster with him was pretty decent, with him and Carla Gugino. So yeah, I mean, I liked a lot of his early stuff. And then I don't know, we're relitigating the Baywatch episode, but just in case people haven't heard that one, I think for him, the key moment was when he did Southland Tales, the Richard Kelly film. And he did a really like funny, over the top, weird performance in that. It was a strange movie, from the Donnie Darko guy, and it bombed. And that dinged his image because The Rock does not want to ever be in a bomb. He doesn't want to be looked at as a failure ever. And so for as big of a guy as he is, for as tough of a guy as he is, for a guy whose whole image is machismo and perseverance and pushing through, I think when it comes to filmmaking, that's the moment that made him a coward. And I will say that I think in terms of being a movie star, I think The Rock is a coward in terms of the creative decisions he makes.
And I agree because, with this movie in particular, first of all, the whole lead up, he won't shut up about this movie, number one, okay? And we're going to talk about that. It's a 15-year journey, listeners, back to 2007 with Black Adam. And he won't shut up about the movie's production and how to, get it off the ground. Okay, fine. But then the movie tanked, and he still wouldn't shut up about it. And he comes off so disillusioned, bitter, whiny, kind of a big baby.
All that I could do and that we could do when we were making Black Adam was to put our best foot forward, surround ourselves with the best people, and then also deliver the best movie we could. Our audience score was in the 90s. Critics, took a couple of shots. That's just the business of it, though. But I think it's almost like when you have a pro football team and your quarterback wins championships, the head coach wins championships, and you have a new owner. And the new owner comes in, says, not my coach, not my quarterback, I'm going to go with somebody new.
What's the superhero you're going to play next?
I'm sorry. What's the superhero I'm going to play next?
Let's manifest that.
Oh, no, yeah, right now. No, I'm good. I'm good for now.
That's that. Like, I remember that. So, like, I'll be dropping clips throughout this episode, but remember that one where he was like live streaming in his car, and it was like 20 minutes while he was driving to all the fans saying, it's all good. Yeah, we're making money. Like, I promise you. Yeah, it's, our critic score was low, but audience score, the reason we do this is for you guys, and it's high. And it was like 20 minutes long. And you can see like the soullessness in his eyes. Like, it just didn't come. It came from a place of panic. That's how I felt. It came from a place of panic and like fear. That, just like you're saying, he probably did have like PTSD flashbacks of Southland Tales, being like, oh shit, I fucked up again at like the absolute height of my career, maybe. Like, the guy can't, he's Mr. Glass in a lot of ways. And it's, this one was laughable. Even buddies of mine that have been pro rock during this entire decade-long era of failures, even them, they were texting me being like, ooh, like, he's just like kind of icky now. Like you said, the sheen, wore off for sure.
Oh, it was definitely panic for him, because the other crucial thing about this is, I don't know if you heard this, Chris, but he has this nickname, Franchise Viagra.
Franchise Viagra.
And he definitely bought into that hype, right? This idea that Dwayne Johnson is the guy that you bring in to save a flagging franchise because he came into G.I. Joe and the second one did like a marginally better than the first one, but they brought him onto Fast and the Furious right when Fast and the Furious was like blowing back up again, right? And like in retrospect, you even wonder how. I mean, I know he was a part of it. I'm not going to take that away from him, but does it all like was he the reason Fast and the Furious like suddenly blew up as big as it was? I don't think so, but I think he thought so.
Definitely.
So he got this like there was this reputation of like the Rock is franchise Viagra. You bring him in and resurrect a franchise. But Black Adam, there were other ones. There's movies like Hercules and things like that. But Black Adam was really the first time where he was really being tested as can he sell a franchise entirely himself? He's not jumping onto a previously existing franchise. In fact, he's making a film that's part of a larger, like, overall universe that's, had some hits and some failures. But in general, superhero movies are the biggest thing right now. So here's a movie that you said he's been working on for, over 10 years. He's been selling like crazy. He's been putting himself out there, marketing it all on himself and his contributions to the DC universe and to this character. So this was a real make or break moment for him. And the fact that it failed, I think that panic is definitely the right word. Because it was the moment where he had to realize, oh crap, I'm not what I thought I was. And I think it's very telling. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but it's very, very telling that in the fallout to this, he goes back to Fast and Furious. And he goes back to work again with Vin Diesel, a man he hates. And, he does not want to be in that franchise, at least not in like the franchise proper, right? But he ran right back to it. So, yeah, I don't know. Panic is definitely the right word.
It's funny to see the timeline of this movie and to see how many times The Rock is touting his meetings with Jeff Johns at DC and Warner Brothers and shaping the new DC universe and, very cool and strategic meetings about everything and all the rejiggering going on. And it goes back to what I said, a few minutes ago about this guy. He almost wants the keys to the castle.
Oh, yeah.
DC is looking for its Kevin Feige, its film chief still. Would you be up to that role?
You're very kind to ask that question. I think the best position that I could be for DC is one as advisor, where I can help, and I can help greatly. I love DC to my blood as a little boy. I grew up loving the Super Friends, specifically Superman. I saw my first Black Adam comic, and it was arresting to me. His face was intense, he looked cool, he looked different, badass, and he had brown skin. So automatically I was relating to him. So I am DC through and through, and in the spirit of growing out the DC universe, I'm here to help in any way I can, including looking for and finding that right leader or leaders.
Guy, stay in your lane for a little while, okay? And, not everything has to be about you entirely. Like the way that he wanted to change the hierarchy of power of this franchise, not just the franchise, the entire DC slate. It seems like he was like, oh yeah, Black Adam is going to be the crux of the next, 10 years of filmmaking. And especially with the product we got, and I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but wow. Like it just kind of is, it's kind of shocking. And especially after the 15 years of production, but the guy is just too much. It's too much. So I got to ask you first and foremost, before I want to get into the movie, obviously, but I got to ask you before you go on maybe a 5 to 10 minute diatribe of how much you love Black Adam and it was like your favorite movie growing up and, another DC character that you waited in line for. Because that seems to be the trend. So I'm getting ahead of it. Black Adam, the character.
Right.
Okay. You are the DC guy of the two of us. You're the comic guy of the two of us. Like, I know many things, but I've always said Trev is an encyclopedia of a lot of stuff, horror and comics especially. So I look to you as my guru, my love guru, maybe. And
I gotta start doing the accent, get canceled.
But I gotta ask you, so Black Adam, what does Black Adam mean to you?
Nothing. Like, so there you go.
That's what I thought. That's what I
This is
thought.
the one you've been waiting for, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
every other character, like, not like, am I aware of the character? Was I aware of the character? Yes, but this is not a character I have a lot of familiarity with or a lot of knowledge, and I won't pretend that I was a huge Black Adam fan leading up to this movie.
Sure.
I was primarily aware of him just because he was a character that, he is Shazam or Captain Marvel, depending on what time you're looking at this character. That's a whole other complicated thing, but he was the main villain for that character. For years, right? He was the evil version of Captain Marvel or Shazam, the Fawcett character that was eventually bought by DC. And Black Adam is like, a quick version. Like, I guess we'll give just the quickest summary here. Shazam is a character, the young boy Billy Batson, who is picked by the wizard Shazam to take the powers of these different gods. And when he says the word Shazam, he turns into Captain Marvel, who is a fully grown man who has these different powers. It's revealed that before Billy Batson, there was a previous champion, and that's Black Adam. Okay. And he was the great champion for a long time, but eventually he got corrupted, turned evil. There you go. Now, I always knew that from various cartoons and stuff, but no, honestly, I was never that big of a Captain Marvel or Shazam fan in general, so it stands to reason I also wasn't reading a lot of the stuff with Black Adam. I do remember, and I'm sure you saw this in your research, I do remember when in the early 2000s, you could tell there was a more concerted push by DC to start making the character a bigger deal. And particularly the writers Jerry Ordway, Jeff Johns, who we talked about last time, and David Goyer were writing some books where they started to really kind of reinvent Black Adam and make him more of an anti-hero than he'd ever been before. So he's not just a supervillain, he's now an anti-hero because he's a bad guy, but it's, again, we talked about this with Sinestro, he's only a bad guy in the sense that he wants justice just like the heroes do. He just has a much more brutal, black and white vision of what that justice looks like. And he's very he will kill and he will do anything to enact the version of justice he wants for his country. And so that he was kind of more, they made him into more of an anti-hero character. And I remember that. I remember when there was a period where, I'm trying to think of a good analogy to this, but you know how in every kind of IP, there'll be a character who's kind of minor, but the cool fans, they're like we like that guy, he's the cool character, even though he's not the big one. I think there was definitely a moment in the early 2000s where that was Black Adam in the comic book world, where you saw a lot of comic fans saying this character rules. I wish DC would do more with him. That's what I remember. And then as soon as I feel like that happened, then I started hearing the initial whisperings of a Black Adam movie with The Rock. So that's and then I only kind of vaguely paid attention to it to that point. So yeah, I mean, this is not a character that means a lot to me, but I think in the comics he's fine. I mean, I've enjoyed stories with him, but yeah.
Well, The Rock, it speaks to him, and I found this quote about the character in the pre-production of the film to be quite ironic, or a window into The Rock himself. So he says about Black Adam, the character, "The black in Black Adam refers to his soul. There's no room or space for him being wrong. There's no room or space for anyone else's opinion. There's only room and space for him to justify anything that he does because of his pain. And he pushes and pushes and pushes and does not see any other way. It's very black and white." And that, to me, describes The Rock in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And we should mention this all comes out of they initially meet with The Rock about playing Captain Marvel.
Correct.
Who would later be, as I said, be just fully renamed Shazam to avoid lawsuits with Marvel. Yeah. But that's who they initially talked to him about. And during those meetings, then they also say, well, there's also this character, Black Adam. He's the bad guy, but he's kind of an anti-hero. And I guess for at least a little bit, Rock was kind of going back and forth on which character he wanted to play. And I think he got it sounds to me like he maybe got pushed into choosing Black Adam by the fans a little bit. Yeah. The fans saying this character's more interesting. That's the character we'd like to see you play. And that's when he latches on to it. Yeah.
And the director that was attached at first in 2009 was Peter Siegel, who worked with Dwayne Johnson on Get Smart, a movie that we will cover in the future. So then flash forward to 2013 now. The Rock is again talking about how he's talking to Warner Brothers, right? That's all he's... what does he say? He goes, "We just had a big meeting with Warner Brothers CEO. We will partner up and create the cool badassery." That's kind of his language always.
Yeah.
It's just about looking cool. 2014, he confirms he is playing Black Adam for real this time. And he confirms it on Twitter. This is a good tweet. Kneel at his feet or get crushed by his boot. My honor to become hashtag Black Adam. Hashtag the anti-hero. Hashtag DC Comics. Like, again, it's you know what it is with Rock? No, it is. There's so many things. But he's just like so surface level, eh?
Yeah.
Like, there's no heart in that tweet at all.
No.
You know, like
There's I'm selling a product tweet.
Totally. Like there's no, there's no screenshot from an Instagram or a note on his phone saying it's my honor, being like, ever since I was, 10 years ago and I was talking about this character, I couldn't have dreamed to be this character. It's finally happening. It really speaks to me for this and this and this reason. No, it's kneel at his feet or get crushed by his boot.
Yeah. No, it's all about like, I'm going to play a powerful character. And that's like cool. And look cool. That's what it's usually about. And like, okay, look, I'm not one of those guys who says like an actor needs to be like a comic book fan or have like a long history with the character.
Of course,
it's nice when that happens, but I don't think it's necessary, right? And we've certainly had other cases in the past of characters coming out or actors coming on to a character who they are self-admitted were not a huge like wealth of knowledge about, and they do fine. That's fine. However, I'll say this. I do think most of actors, when they get cast in one of these comic movies, they probably do a little bit of research. And I think, like, I imagine some of them get some of the trades, they read some of the books, and they probably, get maybe a little bit into it. And Dwayne Johnson strikes me as the kind of guy who, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I have a hard time picturing Dwayne Johnson sitting down on an afternoon and reading like a bunch of Black Adam comics. I can picture Dwayne Johnson telling some intern at $7 Productions, hey, bring me a binder tomorrow with a bunch of like printout information about Black Adam, the character. You know, like give me all the highlights and stuff. Like that's the kind of approach I think he would take.
Kind of the way I send you a PDF of the research for these episodes. That's funny. Also, we got to remind you, by this time, it's 2017 in the timeline, and it's still assumed that it's going to be a Shazam movie, and Black Adam will just be appearing. But after more very cool and strategic meetings with the heads of DC, prepare yourself. Black Adam is getting his own movie. So they have officially split it up. They've confirmed that, what's his name again? Shazam, what's his name? Is that
Zachary Levi?
Zachary Levi, yeah. Zachary Levi will not be in Black Adam's movie, and Black Adam will not be in Shazam's movie, and that's something else that goes on within the DCU. And then just The Rock won't stop teasing Black Adam, because he's saying, what did he say here too? Again, talking about goddamn meetings. We've had a great discussion with Jeff Johns over there at DC. This is a really, really fun, cool time for DC right now because they're really in the process of truly world building and building out everything else. We're looking at Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and all the few surprises down the road. So what we've decided to do is actually create a scenario where Black Adam is having his own standalone movie and Shazam can have his movie, and then we'll build up to a team up or whatever later on.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, and I'm sure you remember this as well, Chris. Like every time, like in all this build-up, whenever you talked about this movie, first of all, I do remember that when it was suddenly like Black Adam is just doing his own movie and he's not going to be the villain in Shazam or Shazam 2. It's like, oh, that's an interesting choice. Because I mean, like I said, we're at a point in DC Comics where they said they had kind of like Black Adam had kind of become a little bigger than just the Captain Marvel like anti-hero. He was certainly facing off against other members of the Justice League, and he was even in the Justice League for a time. So I get it, but he wears the same freaking logo as Shazam, and his origins are very much tied to him.
He says the same word.
So he will always be, no matter what you do, no matter how big he grows, he will always be a Shazam character, a Shazam supporting character, and like primarily those two will be locked together, the same way Hal Jordan and Sinestro are. And so that was like an interesting choice, but that's fine, right? If you take him at his word that the plan was to do Shazam, do Black Adam, and then build to the two of them fighting at some point. However, what I remember about this is every time The Rock talked about this in the media, when he would talk about how excited he was to be joining DC, he would talk about Wonder Woman and Aquaman. You could see like he's so excited, but he's going to join that group, and then he'd be like, "Yeah, and at some point we're going to fight Shazam," and you could just already tell he was like already starting to like those gears were turning in his head. And he's like, "How can I get out of this? How can I make sure I never have to deal with Zachary Levi?" Because he thinks that's small potatoes, So he was already distancing Black Adam from that element of it.
Well, he's just too cool, right? Like Black Adam's just too cool of a character to be in the same screen or presence of Shazam and Zachary Levi. Like his producing partner Hiram Garcia, longtime producing partner, obviously Dwayne's yes man, respectfully, but they talk about the latest script for Black Adam at this point. It's 2018. We're still getting this train going, and he says about Black Adam, he's not a Boy Scout, especially when he's got an edge to him. Like, he's not the Boy Scout superhero. He's the guy that's like, okay, you cross him, well, I'll rip your head off, and then I move on to the next guy. Does that excite you, Trev?
No.
And also, it's starting to muddy the waters. Like, from a guy like me, I don't know who Shazam is. I don't know who Black Adam is. And all of a sudden, you're telling me he's a villain, but then he's kind of an anti-hero, but then he's like famous enough to have his own movie, and I got to root for him in some way. And all I'm thinking, I was like, this guy's gonna just be this violent fucking dickhead. Like, why should I get excited to see this other than watching The Rock look cool and do cool things for 2 hours?
No, that's what it was. It was just like The Rock, he looked at every character that was brought to him and said, which character will allow me to seem like the biggest badass?
Right.
And that's where even like you start to see like as like this. I don't even think we want to hit on every single thing that happened in this development.
No. That's about it. That's about it after that.
Yeah. But you started to see where then people were like talking about it and like it was developing. Then the Shazam movie actually happened. So now it seemed like, well, and it was a minor enough hit that
it was successful.
And we'll never have to talk about it here. But that seemed to like grease the wheels a little bit for the Black Adam movie to get going in a more serious way. But then when people would interview him, they'd be like, yeah, but what about Superman? Would you ever want to fight Superman? And then that's like where, you see like Dwayne Johnson's eyes light up because it's like, ooh, I could fight Superman. Like that's, he's looking at the marquee value of this. So to him, Black Adam versus Shazam, not a marquee item. Black Adam versus Superman, Black Adam in a movie with Wonder Woman, the more proven giant hits, like that's where he wants to head to.
Yep.
I'm Black Adam. And Ryan Reynolds, of course, is Deadpool. It feels like there's a way to maybe converge the universes, right? Between DC and Marvel.
Can we get DC on the phone?
Yeah, this guy, again, all ego. Even like when this movie eventually fails, I said the box office, right? It made just under $400 million. Everybody reported that it was a bomb. It would be lucky to break even. It was probably going to lose the studio between $50 and $100 million. And then all of a sudden, the trades get wind of new spreadsheets. And they're saying, no. Because of the lack of marketing budget, because Dwayne Johnson's social media accounts are so popular, and there really is no money attributed to that, and PVOD grosses and whatnot, we're actually going to make some money. So actually, no, bite your tongue, trades, and every single person reporting on everything. This is incorrect, and the movie is a hit. It's a huge hit, actually. Right, guys? It's a huge hit, right? And later, there is a report from Puck News stating that it sounds like Dwayne Johnson and his executives with Hiram Garcia started leaking falsified financial statements across Hollywood. And I don't know about you, Trev, but I don't remember a time, I don't remember a story like that before. And we've talked about a lot of bombs. We're in episode 80-something on this podcast. And have we ever talked about the star/producer getting caught, or at least allegedly caught by falsifying financial statements? Like that's a new low in my opinion.
It is. I mean that whole thing right there, like the live stream in the car you talked about, where he like denying that it's not doing well and he's trying to pump it up, and then like the leaking of the financial information later to be revealed to be like as you said, falsified financial information. Mm-hmm. That to me was like, dude, yeah, it was like the crossing the line moment with Dwayne Johnson, where it's just like, oh, like whatever like respect I still had for him, it's pretty much gone now, because you said most actors when they're in a bomb, they just put their head down and they just move on. They just don't acknowledge it, or you do what Ryan Reynolds does and make jokes about it forever, right? And that you know, like we talked about that last time, and I think we find that a little frustrating too. But it's still better than this, right? To go into this like instant level of denial and like trying so hard to like push this narrative about how the film is doing well, and it just reeking of desperation, and it really came across cringe and embarrassing. And I don't think we're alone. I think I saw online in general, I think it really changed The Rock's image to a lot of people. I think this really dinged his public image quite a bit.
Yeah, he just would not stop talking about it. And like you said, Ryan Reynolds make jokes about it. You know, at least he's taking the piss. But The Rock just seems pathetic is the word, maybe. You know, seems pathetic. As outlined in this interview with his little buddy, Kevin Hart.
Let's get back to the point. Black Adam, big opening, huge.
Yeah.
By the way, the thing that's crazy about it being so fucking big, your fan base is engaged, everybody's engaged. You make an announcement, and your announcement is talking about, hey, we're not going to continue the world of Black Adam, right?
Yeah.
For me, I'm curious. I want to know why, especially when there's such a successful opening. You seem to have the appetite from your fan base for more. What's the reason or the reasons for the stopping of Black Adam?
I think that Black Adam got caught in a vortex of new leadership. And at that time, as we were creating Black Adam, developing it, shooting Black Adam, we got knocked down a little bit because of COVID and the shutdowns, got back up. There was so many changes in leadership, and as you know, anytime you have a company, but especially that size and magnitude, that's a publicly traded company, and you have all those changes in leadership, you have people coming in who creatively, fiscally are gonna make decisions that you may not agree with philosophically. So I think Black Adam was one of those movies that got caught in that web of new leadership. And, you know, that will always be one of the biggest mysteries, I think, not only for me and us on our end, but also throughout our business, because that's a Kevin question, but that was a question out of Wall Street, that was a question out of Hollywood, that was a question like, wait a second, you had the biggest opening of your career, sure, no China, that could have been maybe 100, maybe 200 more million dollars. You're establishing a new superhero, you want to grow out the franchise, you bring back Superman and Henry Cavill, the world went crazy. And also too, and you were texting me this on opening weekend, is we created a diverse superhero portfolio where we had just men and women of color, you know, in Black Adam too as well. So I was impressed by the execution. Yeah.
I know how Black Adam, how close the movie was, the project, and that was one that was near and dear to your heart. And cracking the code, it seemed that cracking the code on the world of superhero is something, of course, that you were very ambitious about doing. And what I thought you did, I was like, oh, that's dope as fuck. He put his mind to it, and he did it. Like, the shit's happening. They're in production. They're shooting the movie. Fuck, it's done. Damn, release the trailer. Shit look good. DJ, congrats. Fuck, all right. You then release the movie. Movie has success behind it. You get some positive dollars in the goddamn box office behind it in a time where the box office seemed to be taking hits, dips. So, I don't know. It was a weird thing for me, and just not knowing. But to hear you say that, it makes sense. You know, when there's a changing of the guard, sometimes the business changes as well, and rightfully so, right? Like, we can't be a part of the world of why on that side, but and giving them the best opportunity to make more and do more, that's our job. That's where we come in.
Exactly. And, you know, I think as business-minded people who are always, you and I, who are always thinking audience first, yes, we look at and respect the bottom line economically, but also when you think about opportunity and creating things that are fresh and delivering for the audience, which is our number one boss, when that wasn't looked at through that lens, it makes things a little bit more challenging, I think, for guys like you and I, where you go, you sure you want to do this? But hey, at the end of the day, you know what it is? It's like new ownership coming in, buying an NFL team and going, all right, not my head coach, not my quarterback. Doesn't matter how many times you won the Super Bowl. Doesn't matter how many rings we got. I'm going with somebody else.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
That's a great example.
So, Trev, is the world crazy, or was Black Adam a masterpiece? A secret, successful masterpiece?
I guess we'll have to find out.
My son sacrificed his life to save me. These powers are not a gift, but a curse. Born out of rage. So I'm out to them.
This loose cannon needs to be locked down before innocent people start getting hurt.
He's been asleep for 5,000 years.
You find us a cell that can hold him, we'll take care of the rest.
Who's on the team?
I didn't bring a passport.
You don't need passports. You're the Justice Society.
There's a war going on outside we ain't safe from.
Black Adam.
We're here to negotiate your peaceful surrender.
Heard about at least 3 killings this afternoon.
I'm not peaceful. Nor do I surrender. Here we go. I kneel before no one.
You didn't come here to seek justice. You came to exact revenge.
Too much enemy fire to catch a breath.
I never said I was a hero.
Giving you respect, I expect the same thing.
You believe you are not worthy. But fate does not make mistakes.
I'll fight for you. There's a war going on outside we ain't safe from.
You have 2 paths. You can be the destroyer of this world. Or you can be its savior.
In ancient Kahndaq, slave Teth Adam was bestowed the almighty powers of the gods when he utters the word Shazam. After using these powers for vengeance, he was imprisoned for nearly 5,000 years. Once awakened by a group of freedom fighters, Teth Adam has gone from man to myth to legend. Now free, his unique form of justice, born out of rage, is challenged by the Justice Society, modern-day heroes made up of the Falcon, Doctor Strange, Giant Man, and Storm. So get ready for 2022's The Justice Society, featuring The Rock as Black Adam.
Not too shabby of a plot description there. Obviously, there will be some more we'll get into. Chris, I know this was a first-time watch for both of us, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I think we both just didn't even bother with it when it was out. Not only because we kind of just didn't care, but also because we knew we were going to do this movie someday.
Yeah, the writing was on the wall.
Yeah. So I was willing to be patient and wait. So I'll go first on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't tend to do this, right? I will give my own thoughts in a second, but I want to start by reading someone else's thoughts. Okay.
Sure.
There's a critic I like to read. I don't always agree with him, but he's like he's like one of the remaining critics who writes really eloquent film criticism, named David Ehrlich. Okay.
Right.
I don't always agree. Yeah. But I don't always agree, but sometimes I do, but I just love reading his stuff. And I want to read you a little bit of his Black Adam review. He says, "The question that Black Adam poses is a simple one. What happens when Hollywood's most risk-averse movie star collides with Hollywood's most risk-averse movie genre? The answer provided by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's depressingly inevitable and inevitably depressing foray into the superhero industrial complex is, of course, even simpler. Exactly what you'd expect, only worse." And jumping ahead a little bit, he says, "Black Adam so desperately wants to be a darker and gristlier version of the same hamburger that audiences have been served over and over again for the last 15 years. But Johnson, who's also producer on the film and a part-time architect of the cinematic universe in addition to our own, can't abide the idea of doing something that might leave even one audience member behind. He doesn't have the stomach to make Black Adam much of an anti-hero, let alone a bad guy. The character is workshopping catchphrases within a few scenes of waking up and has a habit of disappearing from sight whenever things get complicated." So I want to feed off of that because that's exactly what I was thinking of while I was watching this movie is that, we talked last time when we talked about Green Lantern, and you specifically said that you acknowledged Green Lantern was bad, but you didn't think it was like as bad as, like its reputation. Like maybe people like are overly hate a little bit. I will say this for Black Adam. You look at how low the Rotten Tomato score is and everything, and like the just complete garbage I thought I was going to go into. And I was watching it thinking, this is like a serviceable movie on a lot of levels, right, for this genre. It's doing like a lot of the things that like this genre is expected to do. There's some action scenes that are like, kind of exciting for a bit. The characters are introduced in an effective enough way. But why it never works is that the story it's trying to tell, it doesn't ever have the balls to tell. It is so neutered and so, like we just saw, like it's so obsessed with being a 4-quadrant film and appealing to everybody that it won't take the slightest risk, and it won't make Black Adam any different of a character than all the characters we've seen before, as Ehrlich was just getting to in his review. And it was just so like depressing to watch, because it's the kind of movie that if this had come out in like 2002, I probably would have thought it was pretty fun and liked it. But it is the exact same movie I've seen for 20 years now.
Yep.
With a character that is screaming to be different, with a character that is screaming to actually stand out from the crowd, but a performer who is just not willing to take it there. And all like the story elements that are in place to make it very interesting, like all this stuff about like, like the treatment of Middle Eastern countries, the idea of what is justice, what is justice? Is vigilante justice better than, more official justice? All these questions are like brought up, and then the movie just like drops them and like leaves them there and has no like follow through. So yeah, this is just like, I think this is the kind of movie you and I hate the most. I'm waiting to hear what you say, but it's just so bland that it becomes like aggravating.
I think we are exactly on the same page. And I'm glad you said that there's certain things to like, because I thought I was taking crazy pills, because, I expected this to be like the absolute most god-awful piece of shit I've ever seen. But there's a few things that I liked, especially in the first half. I'm excited to at least say something positive, right? The first half, I liked the introduction of the Justice Society. I thought those characters actually had a lot of chemistry. I wish we saw more of them. I really liked the introduction of Black Adam. I thought it was pretty sick. Like, the first time you see him, he's got the cloak on. He's pretty, his movements are very precise, almost effortless. His constant floating around was a cool moment. I liked all that kind of character stuff there. Certain action looks good too. Like, it doesn't look, chaotic that you can't see it. They use slow-mo really nice. Almost in like a Zack Snyder-y way, in a weird way.
Oh yeah, speed ramping. Yeah.
The speed ramping. But it worked nice. I liked it. But overall, this is kind of the bare minimum of what a movie should be. And I think that's, this is the movie that we hate to discuss because there's not a lot to discuss. It is absolutely a 90s superhero movie or early 2000s superhero movie with 2022 CGI. And like, even to have a skateboard kid character, like I was like, what year am I watching this in? Also, did you notice, I looked it up. I made the joke being like that this is only featuring Black Adam. His absence is felt quite a bit, that I'm like, isn't this his movie? And I looked it up, and somebody did a chart, and out of the 2 hour and 4 minute movie, Black Adam is in it for 1 hour and 2 minutes. I state this because this is his origin movie, and he's in it for half. It's almost like a Black Adam supercut, like it's just showing him fly around and look cool and do violence. And it is a little bizarre because of how much we just talked about. Dwayne Johnson had a grip on the production and of this movie. Why isn't he in it more? Was that strange to you, or was it just me? That was his, like, there's a moment in about 1 hour and 10 minutes where The Rock is just gone, and you think the movie's over. And then there's another 45 minutes to go, and he doesn't really even show up till the very last 5 minutes. It's a very strange thing to me, but I just think this movie is very bland, very dull. It's not a compelling character. If you're trying to get me in the first movie to watch Black Adam be the crux of the next DC Universe movies and follow along this character and see his journey through, I guess it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's a movie by committee, as expected.
You didn't feel the hierarchy of power in the DC universe change?
Now we have new leadership at DC and at Warner Brothers. Now we build out the DC universe properly, strategically. Again, hierarchy of power in the DC universe has changed.
Yeah, like that. Like to come out with that statement to say that this movie is going to change the DC universe.
Yes.
And then I sit there and I watch this half this movie's built in a computer. I'm watching a video game cutscene for the final 30 minutes.
I think that's like just the unavoidable part of this is they really shot themselves in the foot by the hype that they put behind, like, the Rock doing the hierarchy of power is about to change, and this is something so different. And then to sit down and just watch the exact same movie that we've seen, not only from this company, but from the more successful company they're aping for the past 15 years. It was just like, oh, this is it. This is what you made. It is pretty embarrassing. Now to answer your question about like Black Adam's absence from the movie, it kind of doesn't surprise me. And actually, I think that's probably is a byproduct of him being a producer and being so, involved, because it's probably the thing of like, oh, the less I'm in it, the more exciting it is when I show up. But also I just think of like the Expendables movies and how Stallone is the architect of those, and he makes sure that he surrounds himself with other action heroes who can do most of the action, So sometimes I think it's just like a little bit of laziness, right? Like I can build this all around me. I'm the guy you sell it on. I'll be in the coolest scenes, but I don't have to be there all the time. I can take off for a couple weeks and let, the Justice Society film without me. So I think that's part of it. Now you mentioned it. We also both mentioned that there are things to like, and I think that's true. I mean, you talked about the introduction of Black Adam. I'll say this, and I have to clarify it because it's going to sound like I'm contradicting something, so I want to make sure what I'm saying here. I actually did find it very funny a lot in the movie whenever they make a joke of how cavalier he is about killing.
Yes, same.
I'm betting you're going to agree with me. There's a great joke in this movie. One of my favorite part of the entire movie.
Is it at an hour and 6 minutes? Because I wrote that down.
I don't know the time code, but it's when he throws that guy into the distance in the mountains.
The one.
Yeah, and Hawkman comes down and says like, "Well, we have to interrogate that guy." And Black Adam's just like, and then Hawkman says like, "You killed him, didn't you?" Black Adam turns around, you see the guy fall in like miles away in the distance, and he just turns back and says, "He didn't make it."
Please don't. Death Adam, where are you?
You followed me?
My mind and body can exist in different places at the same time. Did you find the boy?
Caught one of the bikes, but he didn't have the child.
Bring me the prisoner. I'll break his mind. You killed him, didn't you?
He didn't make it.
Yeah.
That was great. Like I legit laughed at that. That is a great joke.
Same.
And I anytime they kind of treated like Black Adam like that, it was awesome. The problem was though, so that I'm not a hypocrite, is that that's very funny. Like the idea that he has no second thoughts about killing, but he's always killing such reprehensible bad guys, and like also nobody puts up that much of a fight against him about it. You know what I mean? Like the Justice Society just keeps saying it's like wrong, but we don't have the movie. The movie never takes the time to get really dramatic about what that means to murder somebody. They do treat it as a joke, and like I said, some of those jokes work, but because you only treat it as a joke, and because it's always just goons who we have no connection to, and there's no sense of what it means to take their life, then that's what you're losing here, and that's why this character is not as compelling as he could have been. Because what if in his what if in one of his murderous rages he killed an innocent, or he killed a goon, but then you cut to see that goon had a family, and now we see like what that death means to that family because they couldn't help that their father worked for this bad guy or whatever, right? We've seen other movies do that, and it can also be pretty interesting. This movie is too scared to do that.
Yeah.
It only, like, when he kills people, it's meant to be funny. They want us to laugh. They want us to think, like, oh, that was badass. But if that's the audience reaction you're trying to trigger from us, then you're not doing a great job with this idea of him as, like, an anti-hero and helping us understand why the other DC heroes would be so worried about him and want to get him off the playing board.
Yeah, it's just not complicated. You know, like there's a moment that also made me laugh. All these types of jokes made me laugh, by the way. But yeah, Hawkman saves, like, a mercenary guy, and then all the people around him boo him, and then Black Adam kills the guy, and then all the people cheer. Yeah. So, like, it's never played for this conflicting, complicated relationship between death and life and interrogation versus just, by all means necessary. I also thought about this, and maybe, I don't know if you did either, but Do you think they discussed the ramifications of making this Middle Eastern country's hero kind of this ruthless, emotionless killer, and everybody just praises him unconditionally?
I mean, I think they discussed it as much as they discussed whether Dwayne Johnson is the right person to play that part. You know,
Yeah,
I get
right.
it. He was the Scorpion King, you know, but that doesn't mean you're actually Middle Eastern Dwayne. So
That's
I get
fair.
what Jake Gyllenhaal wasn't available to play Black Adam.
Nice callback. Yeah, it's just kind of paint by numbers. I don't know. Like there's
Well, yeah,
it's,
and just to say one more thing about that, what you're
Sure,
just saying
sure,
about it
yeah.
not being complicated, because you brought up the Hawkman scene with the crowd. That's a great point too, because the problem this movie has, like the great mistake it's making in you know trying to tell this like complex storyline about an anti-hero, what it means to be a hero, is like the best characters in the movie, and by best I mean like the best, like the most good-hearted characters, the characters that are clearly the audience identifiers, who they want us to be on their side, the young mom and her son.
Yeah.
They totally agree with everything Black Adam does. They want him to kill these people. They have been living under this oppressive regime for so long. They see him as like a guardian of good, and they have no problem with what he does. That means that the movie wants us to be on his side.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie is very much telling the audience that we are supposed to agree with Black Adam. We want the Justice Society to eventually see his point of view. We don't want him to see theirs. So the movie is like flawed in its execution of what it's trying to do in that regard, because, like I said, the Rock is not willing to play a character with that level of moral complexity who might be wrong about something. You know, even when he decides that he is like slightly wrong, it's so half-hearted and it comes out of nowhere, and then he just instantly returns to what he was doing before, anyways. And this time now the hero's like, "Yeah, do it, kill that guy." So yeah, because the Rock has to be right. You know.
Well, it's even like what that David Ehrlich said in his review, that he's practicing catchphrases, which is kind of funny, like in the movie. Like some of the humor does work in this film, but it's coming from a weird place that this little kid, that skateboard kid, right away is telling him how to be a superhero and how marketable Black Adam can be. And, you know, you'll be on lunchboxes and action figures. You can be famous, which I thought was hilarious because this movie was immediately deleted, you know, out of all memory and DC planning. So I thought that was
also
hilarious.
because like that kid was probably just telling him what DC told Dwayne Johnson.
Totally.
You'll be on lunchboxes. You'll be on posters. If you're a superhero.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not seeing the full possibilities here. I don't know what it was like in ancient times, but having superpowers is kind of a big deal in our world. Maybe clean up your outfit a little bit, get a cape, change your name.
Death Adam is a very strong name.
It's a little outdated, and you definitely need a catchphrase. Something blackout badass to say right before you absolutely cook some dude.
I don't waste words on the dead.
Well, yeah, kind of like that, but more catchy. I was thinking like, tell them the man in black sent you.
Them?
You know, gods, demons, what was waiting for us in the afterlife? And you wear a lot of black, so we should really lean into that. My point is, you could be famous. Magazines, lunchboxes, video games, and the superhero industrial complex is worth a lot of money.
I don't need a box for my lunch.
You're right. I didn't even think of it that way. That your main characters, your audience surrogates you're okay with this guy just going around murdering people. And I know they're bad guys. I know there's mostly just bad mercenaries and this and that, but it's still weird. Like me and you are defenders of Avengers: Age of Ultron. So people who hate that movie, come at us. But Ultron, I remember coming out of that movie and texting you immediately saying that was one of the most heroic superhero movies I've ever seen. That it spent so much time having the characters save people and look out for people and
they're more interested in saving people than they are fighting the bad guys.
They are.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously it works in that sense. We're watching The Avengers, right? So that's why that movie is so good to me, is that they're showing what I signed up for, them saving people. And this one, I'm signing up for an anti-hero that I should feel maybe icky if he's crossing a line, right? And really at no point do you feel that. And like you said, it's almost like just like minor annoyances by the Justice Society. They're more just like, oh, again? Oh, man, stop that,
Yeah,
man.
I have no problem with you making a Black Adam movie where he's an anti-hero and by the end I'm rooting for him. That's fine.
Yeah.
But put the work into where that is at least a complicated journey for me. Because ultimately I'll walk away from the movie having been more entertained. If you made me like question, you know, what that means to be a hero, and I went along on this journey with him, but he is ultimately just constantly proven right. You know,
Yeah.
and that's the through line of this. This gets back to our Baywatch discussion, where Dwayne Johnson could not allow himself to be the butt of any jokes. He had to have other characters be the butt of all the jokes, and his whole character is like everyone constantly talks to him about how perfect he is. I mean, there are moments in this movie where the Justice Society shows up to stop him, and they will literally have Black Adam go, you know, none of you can beat me, and Hawkman's like, I know. You know, and that's like that's The Rock right there, right? That's him making that script note saying, make sure you have the other main hero say that he knows he can't take me in a fight. Like that's what this movie is, and also make sure that the attitude I have the moment I come out of the tomb is proven to be the right attitude throughout the film. Like maybe have a moment where I question it, but then no, it turns out actually I was right.
Totally.
So yeah, it's not fun for me as an audience member because he has no character journey. There's the semblance of one, but not really.
No.
He is the exact same character at the end of this that he was at the start.
Well, that's what I noticed about it too. Like when I said the movie almost ends at like an hour and 10 minutes, right? And where, you know, Black Adam is captured, spoilers, by Task Force X, Amanda Waller shows up, and they kind of put him on ice, so to speak, right? And then the movie like really just becomes a Justice Society movie. I felt that for the next 40 minutes after that, nothing's happening. Like not a lot happens in this movie. Like listeners and Trev, you heard my plot synopsis, right? There's other things that happen in the movie, I guess, but do they? There's a magic crown that has been lost to time in the easiest cave to explore. It's just like there's an ancient civilization backstory. But it just doesn't really amount to anything. It becomes a big CGI demon monster at the end that you fight. And again, it just looks all built in a computer. And I think by the year 2022, audiences just, I guess, deserve better. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I think we deserve
that final
more.
villain, the demon with like the pentagram on his chest and everything, he looks awesome if he was on the side of a van in 1988, like, or on the cover of like a heavy metal album in the 80s, you know.
Right.
But he looks ridiculous in this movie because of how CGI he is and just like how nondescript and boring he is. Right. He's not enough of a character for us to care about. As you know, and that's a pretty common problem with these superhero movies is like that kind of lame villain at the end. But it's like it's really, really a problem here. I'll give you a great example of what you just said about how there's long sequences in the second half where nothing is happening. You know, at only 2 hours and 4 minutes, this is actually a relatively short movie for this genre nowadays.
Yeah.
And yet it could still be shorter for sure. And a great example of that is, as you said, he is captured. They put him on ice in a secret Task Force X facility. But then the bad guy gets the crown and becomes this giant demon, and he is fighting the Justice Society, and they're getting beat. And they realize they need Black Adam. And so Dr. Fate, Pierce Brosnan's character, who is basically Doctor Strange, right?
Yep.
He like psychically projects himself into Black Adam's mind as he's, you know, kind of comatose there in this prison, and tells him like, well, actually, we need you. You know, we do need your and again, he doesn't say like, you know, you were wrong. You need to reach to be a hero. He basically goes like, we were wrong. You know, like your style of justice is needed. We actually need you to get out. So what needs to happen is he needs to get out of this prison and say the word Shazam to get his Black Adam powers back. And I was just watching this whole sequence, and I'm sure you were as well. The second he gets out of like the little pod he's in, you just want him to pull that tube out of his throat and say Shazam immediately.
Yep.
Instead, the scene goes on for like 10 more minutes of him fighting like a whole like squad of people with the tube still in his mouth, then getting like out to the sea, then like maybe drowning, having a whole flashback. I'm like, oh my God, if you just cut all that out, this like final act would clip along so much faster. Just give us what we want to see. We know he's going to say Shazam. We know he's going to be Black Adam again. Why are you wasting our time with this?
Yep. And also, it's so stupid that Dr. Fate doesn't just wake him up and then go rush the bad guy. Is he an idiot?
Well, I don't know, because you said the thing about how you said you like the Justice Society in this, and I get what you mean in terms of like their charisma. In particular, Pierce Brosnan and Aldous Hodge are pretty great in this, I think.
Yes,
actually. Yeah. Aldous Hodge is Hawkman and Pierce Brosnan is Dr. Fate. They have a really good chemistry together. I mean, Pierce Brosnan's a great, you know, obviously on-screen performer in general.
Yeah,
but he's like maybe the MVP in this movie performance-wise. And they're really good together. Atom Smasher and Cyclone, they're like barely characters. So
of course.
Whatever. Like I had no thoughts about them. But like even with Hawkman and Dr. Fate, this is like really one of those movies that's expecting the audience to have a lot of comic book knowledge.
Oh my God,
because
I know.
They don't tell you anything about who Hawkman is. And I'll tell you, like, Hawkman is another character who has a very complicated, like, history and backstory. So much so that I don't understand it. And I read the comics. And they just, like, don't even bother getting into it here. And then, like, Dr. Fate, too, it's just kind of like, they tell you he's got this mask and he's like, a magic guy. And it's like, I guess that's good enough, you know? And so they just, like, blow right past their introduction. So, like, it's a good thing that they have charismatic performers because they're nothing on the page, unfortunately.
Oh, for sure. And honestly, that's the DCEU way. It's just rushing to some sort of team-up thing without doing the work. That was one of the first things I wrote down was, like, to the uninitiated, me, who the fuck are these people? Yeah. Like, I don't know who they are. I don't know what they do. I don't know what their motivations are.
I'm even confused because, like, every time you've shown us Amanda Waller in the past, she's been more of a, like, a nebulous character who primarily works with, like, the Suicide Squad, right? And suddenly she's like telling the Justice Society of America what to do, who seem like, you know, these like so good, you know, like these really like upstanding, you know, symbols of truth and justice, and she's like their boss.
That confused me in the comic. Oh, so hold on. They are supposed to be really, really good?
The Justice Society? Yeah.
Like, I know they're called Justice Society, but I was very confused by that.
Oh, yeah. The Justice Society is essentially, they were the Justice League before the Justice League. They were like the original heroes, and then like that legacy has continued. Oh, but yeah, they're like the best of the best, right? They're not another Suicide Squad. They're like a really good superhero team. No.
Wow. Well, the fuck?
yeah, I know.
Okay, well, that's even more confusing because I watched the 2-hour movie and didn't understand.
Well, and like when Black Adam first wakes up, he wakes up, he goes on that first killing spree, and like we know who he is because the movie gave us a bunch of narration at the beginning explaining it, and then they cut to Hawkman, and then they're just like, here's Hawkman, no explanation of who he is, what his powers are, anything. It's just like, here's Hawkman, he's talking to Amanda Waller, and they both somehow know all of this stuff about Black Adam. And the movie never bothers to explain how they do. Like, they're already aware of him and like what his whole history is and like why he's a danger to Earth now and how they need to go get him and lock him up. And you're just like, well, wait, I know why I have this information. Why do you guys have this information?
Do you think this is a remnant from that rumored revision of the script we didn't even talk about, so it's kind of perfect timing? But there was a rumor that Suicide Squad 2, before James Gunn was even involved, Gavin O'Connor, I think, was going to direct it, but there was a rumor that it was the Suicide Squad were going to be searching for a weapon of mass destruction, and it turned out that was going to be Black Adam. This has to be a remnant of that.
For sure. I'm sure a lot, like, big chunks that they liked that, and they like incorporated into this as well.
Yeah, and then made no sense.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the original version of the script was just like Black Adam versus what's the demon's name? I already forgot it.
Sabak.
Sabak, yeah. It was probably that storyline. And then there was like the Suicide Squad stuff, and they're like, oh, we could like incorporate the two of them together.
Right.
But you know who's not in this movie and is very noticeable in his absence is Shazam.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned this earlier. If you were going to make a movie where the character has to say Shazam all the time, we have a flashback sequence where Jaimin Hansu reprises his role as the wizard Shazam. It is very weird to not have Shazam in the movie. It is even weirder to have no one ever mention Shazam.
Totally.
Like, the Justice Society never say anything about him. Amanda Waller never brings him up. They never say, like, nobody ever sees Black Adam and goes, wow, you wear the same costume as Shazam. Like, that is a character that has been established as existing in the DC universe now. If you didn't want Zachary Levi in it, fine. If you wanted to operate under the pretense that you're going to build that meeting, fine. To not acknowledge him, that's some bullshit. That is like, that's The Rock flexing his ego and saying, I don't want, like, I got to prove myself without it. I don't think Zachary Levi and Shazam is a big enough property. But I'm sorry, it felt disrespectful to never even mention that character in this movie.
Big time. Even so much that Zachary Levi spoke pretty outwardly about it, especially since, Shazam 2 tanked. So I think he was probably like, I can say whatever I want now.
Yeah.
But he was all but calling The Rock out by name, saying that people came into DC and really fucked everything up and diminished, my movie. And then because Black Adam failed, we failed as well, and all this other stuff. So the guy, Zachary Levi has his own problems.
Yes.
But disrespectful is the word, for sure. For sure. Just mention him. You can't... even the Joker movie had a baby Bruce Wayne, okay? Just fucking do that. Name Amanda Waller on the screen. Oh, well, we were looking after that Billy Batson character or whatever. Just drop a line. But I don't know.
Yeah, or have her have like Hawkman be like, I don't know, like maybe he's good, and have Amanda Waller go like, no, I know, don't let the costume fool you. He's not Shazam, or just like something like that.
Yeah, but ego is the way. Again, it's flexing his muscles, pun unintended. Like it's The Rock, center of attention. He can't be linked to other movies. Other movies have to be linked to his movie.
Yeah,
that's how that feels, and that's why. Can we talk about it now? Like that. Let's talk about that post-credit scene. Might as well.
Before, the only other thing I want to say before you get to the post-credit scene is
sure.
Did you like the super, to me, unexpected cameo of who the original Atom Smasher was?
Yeah, Henry Winkler's in this movie. Yeah. What was that about?
Henry Winkler, the original Atom Smasher, who has passed on his legacy to Noah Centineo. But in a role that clearly, like, it's a FaceTime cameo, and he clearly did just FaceTime from his house.
Yes.
And was like, here, you can use this. But yeah, very, very bizarre. I don't know about you, but for the rest of the movie, anytime they showed Atom Smasher, who you already made the joke, he's basically Giant Man. He can grow really big. Anytime they showed him doing anything, I just thought about how that used to be Henry Winkler, and it was like making me laugh every time.
That's great. Oh, one other thing before we jump into the post-credit scene. I did like some of the fish out of water stuff. You know that I'm a sucker for fish out of water, and Black Adam kind of always walking through, or like breaking through walls or destroying a TV and saying wizards under his breath was funny. And I found he can nail that. His little bit of charisma still pops out in his like natural stoicism in that sense. So I did like his fish out of water. I wanted more of that. Like when he tries out his catchphrase and accidentally kills the guy first. I thought that was funny. More of that. No, like, so more of that.
There are some good little jokes in the movie. Oh, actually, one last other thing though. You know what else this movie does that I hate? I think you do too. Is the kid. Okay, so first of all, we blew past that, but let's just say, like, right off the bat, if you want to like instantly tell the audience that you're not committing to like getting into as dark as you could with this character, and you're not going to make him as much of an anti-hero as you want to, give him a little kid sidekick right off the bat. Right?
Exactly.
Like that's immediately you're telling us like how neutered this character is going to be, especially the way this kid is. This kid is like a huge superhero fan. But they do that thing where I hate, where his like room is full of like DC posters.
Yes.
But they're like posters for like, they're like the posters like I would have as a DC fan. They're like comic covers of like this universe's comics. And his bag opens and like current DC comic books spill out. And it's like, wait, so now you're confusing me. This is the DC movie universe, but like the DC comics that I read also exist in this universe. And you would have posters on your wall drawn by Jim Lee. Like, it's just like, and did you notice he has the Wonder Woman movie poster on his wall?
Yeah. And Aquaman was definitely like a production poster, like art, concept art of Jason Momoa. And then he had a Batman 89 logo. And then there was a Batman statue that almost looked like a Christian Bale statue. Mm-hmm. I hate that shit so much. You cannot have your cake and eat it too like that. There is a way that the MCU has done it, that these characters are famous. And it makes sense because they've sprinkled it through, and there is no such thing as a secret identity in the MCU other than Spider-Man. But in this movie, it just felt like, you know what it felt like? Because there was a lot of visual gags of like Black Adam punching through the Superman logo in the door and, scrapping the Wonder Woman poster and then shooting the Aquaman poster. It felt like, see? Black Adam's strong. He can destroy memorabilia. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think, that's honestly the only reason I could think that it was there for. That he can destroy a Batman sculpture of things to come.
And see, if the Rock had like, if he wasn't a fucking dingus and he was willing to like take the piss out of himself, you could have a moment where he like blasts a shelf and it melts like the Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman figure, but there's still a Shazam figure standing there. And he like gives it like a weird little look, like something like that would be fun. But of course, he would never do that.
Yeah, but instead of a figure, it was like the poster for Chuck.
Yeah. No, Chuck definitely does not exist in this universe. They never.
Right. Yeah. Okay, all right. Man, they did Henry Cavill dirty.
Oh my god!
Oh fuck, they got it. Man.
Okay, so we just talked about
I feel so bad for this guy.
We just talked about how crazy like this whole movie, like the backstory of this movie is insane, right? This one scene and all the behind the scenes wheeling dealings and what happened to this actor. This is the craziest movie story of like the past 5 years.
Yeah,
by far.
Yeah.
This is nuts. Yes. So let's talk about it.
So yes, it is revealed like 2 days before the movie premieres, right? Because it gets leaked, or I mean, probably The Rock leaks it because they see that it's tracking really. It's not tracking well, critically or commercially. So they say that we got Superman back. We got Henry Cavill back, and by this point, he had not shown up on the screen since 2017's Justice League. So it's been 5 years. At this point in the DCU, I mean, there's talk of a J.J. Abrams movie with Superman, but a different type of Superman. They're still maybe going to try to get a Man of Steel 2 out. But really, Henry Cavill's career as Superman is in total flux. You know, he's very successful, successfully portraying the Geralt or whatever on the Witcher TV series. He hates working on that series. And The Rock goes to Jeff Johns, goes to Walter Hamada, and pushes, saying, I want to fight Superman, and I want it to be Henry Cavill, and we're gonna make this deal happen. Well, to The Rock's credit, he makes it happen. they get Henry Cavill back as Superman, so much so that Henry Cavill quits The Witcher and is now back in the DCU. He has this big post about thanking the fans for sticking by. Can't wait to do you guys proper, and be a real crack at the character. And in this scene,
it's so. And also, can we just say, like, the other part of that too is, I don't know if you heard this, but he does like an on-stage live episode of Happy, Sad, Confused with Josh Horowitz.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, and I like listening to it now. It's so like, because like Josh Horowitz is just like, so first of all, I just want to say, welcome back, Superman, and the whole crowd like cheers, and he's like, and Cavill's just like, yeah, it feels great, like I'm so excited to be back, and it's because it's like the weekend of the movie's coming out.
How does it feel? Does it feel like there's a weight off the shoulders? The questions have been there for years. We didn't know if we were ever going to see you in the suit again, and spoiler alert, we've seen him in the suit again, and hopefully there's more to come. How are you feeling about this?
The character, how you guys expressed it is exactly how I feel. It's the character means so much to me, and it's been 5 years now, and I've, quite rightly, otherwise I probably shouldn't deserve to wear the cape, but I never gave up hope, and it's amazing to be here now talking about it again. There is such a bright future ahead for the character, and I'm so excited to tell a story with an enormously joyful Superman.
It's so sad because when he shows up in this post-credit scene is filmed over like a couple days, and The Rock and Henry Cavill are never on set together. It's back like it's like a shot reverse shot. He comes
and
out.
We should say too, like Walter Hamada does not want Henry Cavill to come back.
Yeah, doesn't. Yeah,
because he has other plans for Superman, and like The Rock basically goes behind his back and like makes the deal with some other DC producers.
Yeah, which is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It just shows you, and we're going to get into it, just how fucked up the DC brass are. Like, nobody knows what the hell's going on. For as you can tell, listeners, about the last few decades, they never know what's going on. And into the future. But Superman comes out from the shadows, this big fog smoke, and Henry Cavill wearing a bright red and blue suit. He's got the little hair curl in his front.
Yeah,
and
the John Williams theme plays.
Yeah, he looks great. And, I think Man of Steel is an atrocity, but I think Henry Cavill was always well-intentioned, and he never really got the perfect chance. Like Brandon Routh did. I think Brandon Routh got the chance to play the correct Superman, and I don't think Henry Cavill did. And then, like a week goes by after Henry Cavill is like, bought a new house, bought a new mansion, like broke up with his girlfriend, he's ready to go to conventions again and here we go. DC completely changes hands, and James Gunn comes in and straight up says, nope, that's not happening. Not at all. So, bizarre,
yeah. There's a couple things about it. First of all, we should also mention, to kind of go back to something we mentioned before, that post-credit scene, or I guess it's a mid-credit scene, whatever.
Yeah.
Further complicated by the fact that, again, Amanda Waller sends Superman. So what, now Superman works for Amanda Waller also? Like that? Okay, makes no sense.
Yeah.
But yes, but to just talk about this crazy behind-the-scenes wheeling and dealing, there is no way someone taking over something as big as the DC, cinematic universe, that's not something that happens in like a day. That is not a decision that is made lightly. They had to have been talking to James Gunn forever.
Oh, yes.
Those pieces had to have been those pieces were definitely in play, and things were already being figured out while this movie was being made. There's no way, it doesn't predate it. So the fact that, like you said, the fact that The Rock was able to go around people's backs and get this scene made at a time where there was probably for sure already people in place knowing that there's really no future for Henry Cavill in this role.
Or The Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just mind-boggling that they let it get to that point and let it become like you said, a piece of the marketing too. Like that was the final marketing tool, is saying, come see this movie just for Henry Cavill's, just for the post-credit scene, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And and yeah, I'm kind of with you in that. I've never liked Cavill's Superman because of the material he was given.
Yeah.
And also he's just so ugly, Henry Cavill. But
don't relitigate this.
But I will say, and I know it's crazy because it's so brief, but you're right in that it's funny, the small changes, what they can do, right? Seeing him show up in this post-credit scene with the little curl, with the right costume, with the John Williams theme, it's for 4 seconds, I'm like, oh, look, this is the most Superman he's ever been, for just this brief little moment. And that's it. That's all he gets, is this promise of something that will never happen. And yeah, I'm not a fan of Cavill as the character because of the previous material, and ultimately I am more excited for a James Gunn Superman reboot.
Sure.
But that doesn't change the fact that this sucks, and you gotta feel bad for the guy, and it makes me even more angry at Dwayne Johnson because this falls on him again, right? He played with this guy's career, and Cavill had to feel the fallout of it, and again, a pretty embarrassing fallout because of him posting about it, doing interviews about it, and then having a week later be like, oh, sorry, actually that's not happening. Just such a bizarre situation.
Black Adam, just from start to finish, 15 years behind the scenes history. The movie comes out. It's such a nothing movie. Mm-hmm. To bring back a long lost actor from the role that everybody thinks is just absolutely done with it. To tout that you are now the hierarchy of power is changing, and Black Adam is the first step to a brand new DCU. And then just literally the next weekend, overnight, the thing is just a fucking bust. I don't remember a time with such colossal failure at planning from beginning to end. This one is just, it really is that committee movie. So many hands in the cookie jar, so many people at the meetings, zero creative or visionary leaders, just a hodgepodge of junk, and it just blew up in their face. It's so strange.
Just the level of egotism driving it too. That's what it'll always be remembered for. I mean, we went the Superman scene. Let's just say it what it is too, is when you have a post-credit scene teasing you versus Superman, you are forcing DC and Warner Brothers to forget about you ever fighting Shazam.
Yeah.
You're just bypassing that idea because you've now made that such an afterthought, and that's obviously why Dwayne Johnson did that. That was the calculated play to say, well, you said he kept saying the hierarchy of power is going to change in the DC universe. This movie was all about establishing I am now the most powerful character in DC. Yeah. I am the character that this whole universe will be built around, so much so that the other big one, Superman, he has to fight me. That's what we were building to, clearly. That's that's the main event you're all expecting. And for it to blow up this much in their face, it's embarrassing. There's a part of me that loves that this movie exists because I think this is the humbling The Rock needed. Now, I don't really think he learned anything from it, as his reaction to it shows, but it still kind of makes me happy that this happened because I think the world needed to catch up to what some of us knew about what this guy was doing and how he was treating his career and how he was just willing to play with not just one franchise, but so many multiple franchises just to stroke his ego. And mm-hmm. I'm happy it failed. I don't say that often on this podcast, because I don't really root for movies to fail, honestly.
And we don't like making fun of actors, so I get it.
No, unless they're Dwayne Johnson, and I don't like movies to fail unless they're Black Adam.
Yeah. The pull quote from the episode. Yeah, this was a bust. That's for sure.
Yeah,
this was a bust. And it's funny because, like you said before, he ran off back to Fast and Furious. So supposedly we're getting him back in the Fast franchise against his arch enemy Vin Diesel. It's very unclear if they're gonna even share screen time or be in the same movie. It sounds like he might be making another spin-off movie.
Yeah, it's like a fast, like, it's like almost like one of those like Spider-Man 2.1s or something, right?
Right. Yeah. In between, cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't have much more to say about Black Adam. That's for sure. I think we nailed it.
Who does?
Honestly, I'm surprised we got this much out of it.
Yeah.
Which is great. But
yeah, it's a movie that made me laugh occasionally. Mm-hmm. But I watched it a couple days ago. It's already losing. It is the reason I can't say more about it is wide swaths of it are leaving my mind already.
Yeah,
and it will be fully gone by the end of this week, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, listeners, we have one more to go.
Yeah. Now the good news is this one was such a crazy behind the scenes. This was like a movie just like ruled by chaos. But thankfully, our next one is a much smoother ride.
Yeah, exactly. And we are obviously talking about 2023's The Flash. We will be culminating our DCPU with The Flash. And another one me and you both have not seen. I never planned on watching The Flash.
Yeah.
But for reasons, as we said before, pretty clear that this is it. So, we'll be covering that on the next episode. So tune in.
Yeah.
Follow along at F2F Pod. That's at F2, the number 2F Pod. That's on all the socials. Like us there, like us everywhere. Rate, review, whatever you do. Star rating will be great. And just join the tribe and hit that subscribe and keep along with us with one more episode of the DCPU. And then we'll be jumping into Christmas time. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, I've been shopping for a few weeks for your gift, Chris. I hope you enjoy it.
I know, same. Are we gonna be nice this year? Or are we gonna be mean? We're usually pretty nice.
I think you'll be happy.
Okay, good. Then I'll do the same thing for you.
Yep.
Okay.
Grandchild, bye.